Why in the world is Apple making the iPhone 15 Plus when the 14 was such a major failure? Well, a lot of people are saying they should not make this phone at all, but there's also a different thought, and this phone could actually do way better this year, which I will explain. When Apple announced the 14 Plus, we were quite excited for it because it was the first time that we had a large screen iPhone that had a lower price tag than the flagship Pro Max model. Now, it was a replacement for the 12 and 13 mini. Many people asked for that phone for a long time, but when Apple gave it to us, the 12 mini did not sell well at all. A lot of people say it's because the battery life was not good. It was not lasting all day. But then the 13 mini had a nice boost, about 2 hours of real world use better than the 12. Now, I personally really like the 13 mini and I used it for quite a while, but I couldn't stick with it because the cameras weren't as good as the Pro models and because the reception was lacking as well. And unfortunately, the 13 mini sold even worse than the 12 mini. So Apple decided to axe it, get rid of it, and give us the complete opposite, a larger standard iPhone. Now, the appeal was supposed to be the large battery in this phone without the extra power usage of the Pro Max, which was supposed to give great battery life, but in the real world, that wasn't really the case. And when you compare them directly, the Pro Max had that much nicer screen, it has better speakers, it has the extra camera. Of course, you also have ProMotion. There are so many real world benefits that you get for just $200 more. And because of that, even after the first weekend, the 14 Plus disappointed with sales, whereas the 14 Pro Max did way better than expected. Ming-Chi Kuo gave us info saying that the 14 Plus actually sold worse than the 13 mini and the iPhone SE, which was absolutely crazy. So Apple's tactic didn't work very well. It turns out that people are just willing to get into debt to get a new phone and to get the Pro models, and the sales compared to the Pros were just terrible. I think a big part of that was the new dynamic island, which is a huge standout feature visually on the phone that you only get with the Pro models. And that, along with the other features, was well worth it for the extra $200. And Ross Young gave us data saying that the Pro phones, as far as panel shipments that he tracks, are about 75% of the sales, whereas the 14 Plus, they actually stopped production of the screens because people were not buying them. Because of that, Apple is very concerned and they were looking to reevaluate the 15 lineup to make it work better. But as it turns out, they are still making that 15 Plus variant, even though some of us thought that they could be axing this phone. So why would they do that? Well, some of us thought that's because they have a lot of extra parts, so they might as well use it. But the interesting thing this year with the 15 lineup, they not only are going to be changing the front of the device, the actual body is also changing with curved edges. So that means it's different tooling. And on top of that, this year the 15 lineup is going to be getting a dynamic island. Now, personally in the past, what I was thinking is that they should just ditch the 14 Plus size and price point and ditch the SE model, which is very, very outdated, and instead replace that with a mini, because there are still people that want to get a mini, but being so close in price with the regular sized iPhone, it just doesn't make a whole ton of sense. So if Apple were to drop the Plus, replace it with an SE that is basically the mini, but with some updated parts that would get better battery life with the newer chips, that would be a nice win-win. And just keep the standard 15, then you have the 15 Pro, and then you have the 15 Ultra, a nice clean lineup without a ton of phones packing that in. But now, thinking about it a lot further, is seeing the failure of the 14 Plus, Why would Apple still make one? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. Now, the first one we know is that Apple is going to be raising the price, and the Pro Max or the Ultra now, well, that thing is going to start at $1,200. Now with the 14 Plus, the price difference was not very large. It was a $200 price difference, and then you visually see that dynamic island being there. It just didn't make sense to buy that. This year though, with the price tag going up, we're having a bigger spread between the prices, and that should help the 15 Plus stand out more so. Now, along with that, like I mentioned, the dynamic island will be in this phone, so it will also look much more new, much more fresh, something different than from what people are upgrading to. So if you're spending the money, you would want to get something that has actually been upgraded visually, not just some parts internally. Now, the 48 megapixel sensor is also a big deal for the Pro phones, and this year, a 48 megapixel is coming to the regular 15 and 15 Plus, so users are not gonna have to choose to spend more money to get higher quality photos, where the 14 Plus was noticeably worse with its 12 megapixel sensor. Now, even though the sensor is going to be smaller than the Pro phones, you will still have that extra detail. Now, with that, we have another report that almost 80% of people are buying their phones from carriers instead of online sales through Apple's website. Now, that might seem weird, but carriers have had some killer deals, some killer trade-in offers. And when people are going in, they're looking at the phones in front of them, and they're seeing that big difference. So I think now when they see the 15 Plus with the dynamic island and that lower price point, that will get a lot more people to actually buy the phone, and it may be worth it for Apple to keep the 15 Plus and keep that size. Now, just like the 12 and 13 mini, I think this will be the last year to test it out, see if this bigger price difference is gonna help and the refresh, and see if they should keep it for another year or two, or if the sales are still gonna be as bad as the 14 Plus, then they can axe it and change up their lineup and maybe go with the method of making a mini be the SE at a $499 price tag, and basically just thinning it out and just keeping it more simple, which I think makes a lot of sense as well. So you guys let me know why you think Apple is still keeping this phone. Does this make sense for them, or should they just get rid of it? Go ahead and click that circle above. Check out one of those videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next one.